Welcome back to Breakfast Central, and thank you for staying tuned. It's time for us to share with you what the front pages of the papers are saying. So like I like to say, let's punch you with the punch. On the front page of the Punch newspaper this morning, the big story says, FEC unfolds 3-year economic revival plan. Tinubu warns ministers. Ministers to achieve first phase of Tinubu's 8-point agenda within 3 years. Tinubu inherited bad economy, youth unemployment, unacceptable, says minister. Abiodun diverted Ogun local government allocations, 10.8 billion naira bailout. Council boss alleges. Will there be investigations into this story? Tenant bites off neighbor's ear over electricity bill. See, poverty here and there. And
frustration.
Exactly. People are frustrated and pushed to wall. And this is unfortunate that we're going to keep hearing many stories like this, even worse, because people are angry. You can see it on the road when they're driving. Road rage is doubled. So right now, it's just everyone tread with caution because anything can happen at any time. Yeah. Just be safe. NLC FMBN clash over 238 billion naira National Housing Fund. Cameroon dam flood to hit states in 7 days, according to the federal government. So start to make plans if you need to relocate your certificates and the most important things in your houses. If you're within those 7 states, now is the time to start calling family, friends, move your fridge, your car, and the most important things for you, because I don't know if this palliative will get to you after the flood has hit. It's unfortunate. NBS kicks as ex-statistician general faults new unemployment data. Yeah, still on that story. Extractive firms underpaid $10 billion in taxes and royalties, according to NATI. And that's all that we have this morning on the Punch newspaper. Let's head over to the next.
All right. Away from the Punch, I think it was also important to just quickly, speak on some of the things on the Punch this morning. You remember that there was a flooding last year also. Was it last year, I think?
Yes, in Bayelsa, where it was like a third of the state was submerged.
Yeah, and that was water. Because of a dam also, dam issues
yes.
With a neighboring country also. And so we're pretty much expecting the same thing. Hopefully the disaster is not the damage rather is not as bad as it was last year and doesn't lead to as much death. Good thing that the federal government has also put out, a warning. But aside the warning, they should also make, short to long, but I think they should also, make
provisions
for people who want to move to higher ground or who need to relocate. Healthcare, food stuff, and everything that is necessary. That's the responsibility of the government.
The Minister of Poverty, Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Alleviation will have her hands full.
National Emergency Management Agency
Authority,
also.
Yes.
These are things that must immediately step in. We do not want to report the stories when there is already the deaths that have been recorded and chaos.
Absolutely.
There is that one, and then also the federal government, of course, unfolding the 3-year economic a revival plan, and of course, government or friends of the government saying that the government inherited a bad economy and youth unemployment unacceptable. They campaigned, during 2022, 2023. They knew that they inherited a bad economy. They knew that things were bad then, but of course back then it was wrong to say it.
Yeah.
They instead painted that other government like it was the best thing after sliced bread in Nigeria.
But it's a family problem. It's from one bad government to another bad government.
Okay.
So,
but the point is, those excuses will not be accepted or tolerated by Nigerians. The APC used that same excuse for 8 years and said that the PDP, created so much damage that the Buhari government couldn't work. At some point, nobody, was listening to that excuse anymore. And so I don't think Nigerians would tolerate that excuse from the current administration that they inherited a bad government. That's your problem. You knew what it was before you came in, and so you promised to fix it, so you fix it. All right, let's move away from the Punch newspapers this morning, go to the Daily Sun, so what we can find. It says, Tinubu reads Riot Act to ministers. I'll not spare incompetent officials, vows president. We'll see. Nigeria grinding to a halt on the youth, says the PDP. The PDP has been described as almost, zero opposition. In the last couple of years, it has, seemingly, from a lot of people who have monitored Nigeria's electoral process and the Nigerian space generally, would describe the PDP as one of the worst opposition parties that the country has ever seen. Completely ineffective, and has simply just existed as a political party, not as an opposition party, and has been there while the Labour Party, which of course came into prominence maybe 10, 12 months ago, became more popular than the PDP has ever been. All right, still on the Daily Sun this morning, federal government evacuates 298 Nigerian irregular migrants freed from Libyan detention. Mbatu unveiled $2.1 billion project pipelines as Enugu holds investment roundtable. And also KPMG dims Nigeria's growth prospects, forecast 2.65%. Federal government prunes list of delegation to United Nations General Assembly, orders non-inclusion of officials without role. And that is meant to be, some steps that are being taken to make the government seem like it's not interested in wasting money. But that's not after, nominating 45 people to be ministers. You don't now start reducing those who get to travel to the United Nations General Assembly and make Nigerians or expect Nigerians to feel like you are, interested in saving money for Nigeria. That's not after sharing 5 billion naira to states and asking them to give, them as palliatives to citizens. But Nigerians will, of course, not be able to, or will not be deceived by, these extra steps that are being taken to act like you are prudent. All right, those are the stories on the Daily Sun newspapers this morning. Let's move on.
All right, we move to our final paper for the morning, the Daily Trust newspaper. On the front page, President Tinubu unveils 8-point agenda, warns ministers against underperformance, and we inherited very bad economy, says Edun. Find short-term solutions to fuel subsidy removal. Forex crisis, expert tells federal government. Well, they've been looking for these short-term solutions, and those solutions have not yet been solutioning in Nigerian English. Tribunal, Kano APC declares fasting prayers 48 hours after NNPPs. NNPPs what? That doesn't seem like... Okay. Residents invade Bayelsa warehouse, loot spoiled 2022 palliatives. This is an embarrassing story. This is such an embarrassing story. One, it's reflective, the story about residents invading Bayelsa warehouse and looting the spoiled 2022 palliatives. First of all, it's showing corruption and wickedness. That there were palliatives that were to be disbursed to people who needed it. Bayelsa particularly was affected by the flooding last year. Yeah. So they could stop palliatives somewhere, and the palliatives were there until they got spoiled. And now there's a hunger problem, and people go and loot what is spoiled, and they're still going to eat what is spoiled. It's just a heart-wrenching situation, to put it quite mildly.
Yeah, I agree, but I think, I hope that there is a proper investigation to show beyond reasonable doubt that those palliatives were actually kept for the Bayelsa flooding in 2022.
Regardless of what they were kept for.
Yeah, because you know why? Because if you remember during the NSAS protest, and the post, the reactions to the NSAS protest when there was a lot of looting going on of COVID-19 palliatives, there were a couple of warehouses that were also broken into that had no business with COVID-19.
Yeah, but, and all of them were labeled COVID-19. Exactly. Okay, so what is that palliative house for? We hope that we can find out what it is. Few more stories. Tinubu bars officials without specific rules from attending ONGA. 215 billion naira gas expansion fund dormant for 4 years, according to federal government. PSC retires 4 DIGs for not leaving after Egbe Tokun's appointment. And final story. Cameroon notified us 7 days after opening Lakdo Dam, says federal government. Yay. Okay, that's all that we can take on the Daily Trust newspaper this morning.
All right.